Ohio Business Spotlight here. We missed a couple weeks. We missed everybody that tunes in every week, Thursday, somewhere around between 3 and 4 o'clock, depending on our guest schedule. But I'm really excited to have today someone who has been my personal mechanic for the fleet of vehicles that myself and my wife and my kids own. And he's always just been head and shoulders above the rest. He owns Carol. He's one of the owners of Carol Wirtz Tire. They're a family-owned business that you want to check out after this podcast right here. His name is Bill Brink. He's also a personal friend of mine. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg. Nice to see you as always.
Absolutely. So, Bill, let's get started here. If people say to you, I find myself referring you to a lot of people because you're in one of the industries where it's so hard to find someone that they trust.
Yes.
And I know one of the catches for me immediately was, and my son Logan, this is the one thing he loves about when you service a vehicle and you make recommendations and you give a timeline. And that is really something that won me over. You say, hey, listen, you might want to be prepared for breaks here in the spring or something like that. When did you start that? And have you noticed that people really, really dig that you do that?
Yes, of course. I think, it's important to mention that this particular company has been in business since 1952, so 73 years this year. I became involved in the business in 1999. One of the things that I noticed when I became involved in the business is at that time the business was very transactional. So I think it's very important for other business owners as well as people that own vehicles like yourself and many other people out there to realize that there's a big difference in the business world between transactional and a relationship. Okay, so what we went to the market a little bit different after I got here, and I noticed what was going on. You got to kind of get your feet in and see what's working and what's not. And I noticed that if we started to trend towards more of a relationship type of model instead of transactional, it was going to continue our longevity. So that's where the thing that you mentioned about, hey, we give a timeline or other things like that, like something that we know based on what we see and that we pride ourselves in being experts in our field. We can give a timeline, but we do that with our customers because we're trying to establish a relationship with them, a relationship that's based on trust, of course, honesty, because in our industry, as everyone knows, that there's a lot of unscrupulous people out there when it comes to car repair and tires because they try to take advantage of people. And we want to sleep at night. We want to be treated by others the way we want to be treated, all the things. But that's when you start to move into a relationship model where you go to business every day saying, hey, we want them to return. We want their children to come. We want their grandparents to come. We want their neighbors to come. And that's how you try to develop that rapport. Like, hey, this is what we see, but it's not something you have to do right this minute. It's just something to start to plan for. And let's reevaluate it at next service and see how it's progressed from what we see now to what it is in 6,000 miles, at your next service interval. So I think that approaching things in that manner makes us more relationship based. And that's really how we go to market every day.
Well, I tell you what, I can give a perfect example. I know one of my first experiences was with you, and you always look at what the manufacturer recommendations are for a vehicle. You did that with my wife's vehicle, and that was my first experience with you. You did that in aftermarket parts that I put on my Jeep and things like that. But one of the things that really impressed me is when Stacy came in with her vehicle the very first time, that was because the dealership was prompting her to get a scheduled service. And you basically said, hey, listen, I can do that service right here, right now. It's kind of expensive. What I see right here, right now is that I think we can do this in 6 months or whatever the time frame that you use it. That was so impressive to me right there because, we easily would have did the service that, the dealer recommended. And then if you would have doubled down on that recommendation, do you see that a lot? And I guess you don't need to speak so much to dealership recommendations, but do you see that a lot in the common customer that comes through the door and the repeat customer that walks through the door?
Yes, absolutely. Our job is to correlate what the manufacturer recommended maintenance is at certain mileage intervals and what you have and haven't done. So what we do is we correlate a bunch of information. All right. So we're part of the Carfax network, for example. And because of that, we have access to vehicle histories. If it's a reputable shop, they're already reporting to Carfax. So if there's a manufacturer recommended maintenance item that's supposed to be done at XYZ mileage interval, we can go into Carfax and make sure that you've never done it. And then we can see if it really needs to be done based on what the actual vehicle is showing us. And then we can make an educated recommendation to you so you can make an educated decision as a vehicle owner if it's something that is a necessity or it's something that can be deferred a little bit or if it's something that is past due and it's going to lead to failure here soon. And that's just where you, again, another tool that we use to build a relationship through honesty and trust. We don't go to people and say, well, Honda or Chevy or Ford says that at 100,000 miles, you have to do all these things. Our competitors, whether they're new car dealers or other shops or large chains, are going to probably approach you that way because all they're going to do is print out something that everybody has access to that says, oh, yeah, by the way, at 100,000 miles on Honda, you got to do this maintenance, this maintenance, this maintenance. But if it's already been done, what's the point of doing it again until it comes up again on the maintenance thing? But if they're not going to take that extra step and correlate all the information that's at their fingertips, then they're really breaking your trust because essentially that's should be the pretense that you come in under, that somebody is going to look at the whole scope of information that's available at their fingertips and help you, the consumer, make an educated decision. And that's why, Greg, just like you've already said, we've had lots of conversations like this. We've had lots of conversations with Logan, your son, about this. Young people don't know what they don't know, and they can be taken advantage of very quickly if they're not going to a place that they're trying to build a relationship with. Hey, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of transactional customers out there that are looking for the cheapest deal or a coupon, but they get what they pay for, right? Mm-hmm. So we are like, hey, we don't want to be advertising lowball prices or gimmicks or marketing tactics. We just want to be straightforward with people because that's how we would like to be treated. Most people are like that. And then we let the customer make the decision based on what we see. We just present it to them very simply. This is what we see that is going to be trouble. This is what the manufacturer recommends to keep you out of trouble. Here's the prices. What would you like to do? Should we prioritize things for you? Should we, say, hey, this is something you can wait on, give you a timeline on? We just like to get into those engaging conversations because we're trying to build that relationship up, and I think that just speaks volumes about why we are still here in an industry that, like we've already stated, has a lot of unscrupulous characters, number one, filled with a lot of big regional or national chains that focus on that transactional model where you're in the door, they want to get everything they can out of you at that visit, and they don't care if you return. We cannot do business that way as a small business owner and continue to survive amongst all the competition if we treated people that way. We would go by the wayside because we just don't have the backing that some of those do some of those larger companies and chains do, where they can treat people like that and get away with it. Because it's a transactional model. That's it's a big thing for us, is just trying to build that rapport and that relationship so that we have that trust and honesty that we have with multitudes of customers.
I hope entrepreneurs are paying attention to that. I hope business owners are paying attention to that, because that could be a mission statement. You just gave a generic business mission statement for any business, and it's so trouble. We see a lot of young entrepreneurs. We see a lot of new businesses here on our podcast, and thinking about it for the long play, like you guys do, you almost make the assumption that, based on, without you even having to ask, based on the information that you've provided, you're making the assumption that, hey, I'm going to treat this as a long-term relationship right here. I'm going to give you information that is going to that's going to lead to that right there. What type of response? So when you get a new customer and you take that response right there, or you give that, you operate that way, what type of responses have you seen in the past? What's the craziest one? Have you ever seen somebody just in disbelief?
Yes. I think the best way to describe it is some people are already, just because of it being a car repair environment, are on the defense,
Ah,
right? So it's our job to make them comfortable, especially if they're a new customer. We've never seen them before. And let's say their car hasn't been maintained very well at all.
sure.
So, we have to approach somebody that we don't know very well, that has a litany of things that we need to discuss, and they're already on the defensive because they're in an environment that, in their past dealings, has probably not been uh, very good, where they didn't feel good about it. So it's all about how you make people feel, Greg, right? That's what they remember. They don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel and what you do, right? So when we have to have those first time customer conversations, that can be a little difficult because their car hasn't been properly maintained and they haven't had a relationship with anybody. They're clearly been transactional, right?
Mhm.
They're already on the defensive. So a lot of times we hear how much of a breath of fresh air is that we approach them in a very kind manner, where we sit down next to them. We're not standing over them. We're not standing at the counter having a wall, right? We sit down where you can have a conversation like you would with your friend, your neighbor, your preacher, whoever, right? And we say, hey, these are some things that we see. Let's make notes about these. Let's give you an estimate. And you can leave here knowing that your car was properly inspected, and you can start to make decisions based on whatever your budget constraints are, or however you use the vehicle. A lot of people use vehicles in different ways.
Mhm.
I just had a conversation with a lady yesterday, as a matter of fact, where her and I were discussing, like, hey, the car is a utilitarian device for me, right? And then I'm looking at a guy right now on the podcast who likes to put a lot of aftermarket accessories and upgrade your Jeep, which is a phenomenal thing to do. But you look at your vehicle completely different than the lady that I had the discussion with yesterday, right? So you got to categorize your customer, and sometimes you got to have those difficult conversations, but you're still trying to build that rapport and trust, like, so they understand that, hey, I'm not coming at you and saying, oh my gosh, if you don't do your brakes right now, you're gonna kill somebody. We don't do that, right? But
Push-
other shops do, Greg. They do, and
Oh, I know they do.
they try to sell with fear-based model. We don't sell anything. We're advisors, right?
Mm.
We're doctors. You come into Carol Wirtz, we're going to give you an honest, fair evaluation, and we're going to let you make the decision based on what we see. We don't push anything. And I think
Let me push back
that,
on that a little bit. Let
yeah,
me push
go
back on
ahead.
that a little bit because a lot of business owners, so customers are hearing this and they're going to be impressed right there because you can tell that you mean what you say. But let me push back now. So a business owner that's listening to this right now that has a team, I have a feeling that a young entrepreneur or a new business owner would say to you, okay, Bill, that's easy for you when you're dealing with the customer right here. How do you incorporate that into your corporate culture so that every employee looks at it that way right there? Because I think that would be a challenge sometimes. People, when they deal with the owner, they probably feel like they're getting exactly what you say. How did you breed that into your culture?
Well, it takes time, number one. So it's a long process, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. Right? If you want to have a good culture where people care about the customers so that they come back and they tell their friends and all that, you need to inspect what you expect. I'm sure
Okay.
you've heard that phrase before, right? So, in order to develop a culture like that in, let's say, our industry, we're looking at all the paperwork, we're watching interactions with our staff. We don't say anything, we don't do anything, and then, we make sure that we have, regular meetings, if you will, either one-on-ones or as a team, where we just keep reiterating the common theme that we want to see, where we're treating people like people. They're not dollar signs. We want every car that comes in these bays for you to treat it like it's your mother's car.
Mm,
Okay? Would you sell something to your mother that she doesn't need? Well, heck no, you wouldn't.
right, right.
Right? So it's just a process, and that's how you get to that. But also, an important thing is, like I mentioned before, we don't advertise in a traditional sense.
Hmm.
Okay. We have a few coupons on our website. Okay. But I'm not interested in getting a transactional customer with my coupons. My coupons are buried on my website. My staff is highly trained into making sure that we give them a warm greeting when they come in and that we deal with them on a one-on-one basis, whether it's on the phone, via text, via email, or in the showroom, where we're on the same level that they are. We never want to be overbearing. We never want to talk over someone. We never want to act like they don't know what we're talking about and we're superior. Does that make sense?
It does. It has to help that I want to transition to something else, but
Mhm.
I want to make a closing statement on that. It has to help that they see the owner walking that walk right there. They see that they don't see it in the customer facing media that you have like on your website. They don't see, the things that would bring in the transactional customer. And if they do, they see the leader kind of doing it the way that he says he's did it and that right there. So let me ask this right here. Talk to me because I was impressed with your menu of offerings. When you talk about all that you do and the type of services, if you could just quickly, and you don't have to dive in detail because there's a couple other things I want to get to, but just kind of a menu of services. You guys are both commercial and personal, and there's just so many things that you do. Kind of outline it for us.
Sure. On what we consider the quote unquote retail end, which would be, your typical family that has a, fleet of vehicles like the Fays do, that's our target market. Obviously, a family that has a lot of cars because they have a lot of kids or extended family members all living in the same home, whatever the case may be. So we have any sort of offering for that. We can handle anything on a personal vehicle from repair, maintenance, tires, all of that stuff. And then, yes, we do have um, a commercial division that handles large semi truck tires, off road equipment like backhoes, skid steers, loaders. We work on all kinds of trailers, semi trucks, that sort of thing. That is primarily just tires, though.
Yeah.
We do some alignments and stuff on larger vehicles, but for the most part, our commercial offerings are geared towards commercial customers that are what we consider to be a mixed fleet, meaning they have cars, they have light trucks, they have vans, they have medium duty trucks, they have trailers that haul equipment, the equipment itself, if it has tires on it. We're all into that. So we want to try to be the one-stop shop where if I go to, let's say, a construction company that has all kinds of different vehicles and equipment, they don't have to have like six different vendors to handle things, right? They can have one that can handle probably 90% of what they have, and then they may have a couple other fringe vendors for stuff that we don't do. But again, that's where the relationship stuff comes in. And we've had a lot, just to build on that a little bit more. We've had a lot of customers that have come to us and said, "Hey, we really like what you guys do for us. Would you consider doing XYZ?" And that is like the ultimate compliment, right?
Mhm.
Where we had a customer said, "Hey, I've got these other locations in Columbus and Cincinnati, and we, would you put together a mobile service offering to go out there and service them mobily?" And we did. We put it together. We made it work. They were happy. We were happy. And, because we're small, we're also very adaptable. So if a customer comes to us and says, "Hey, we love you guys. We want to give you more," we try to figure out how to make that happen.
Now, you stole my thunder. I was going to call you a one-stop shop, and that's exactly what you are. Now,
Yes.
before we wind up here, you've already given one nugget, and I love when it works out naturally because we oftentimes ask business owners, "What's a nugget that you can give somebody who's just starting out or a new business owner that might be struggling?" And you already gave them one by thinking the long play, not just looking for the transaction today. That was solid gold. But when it comes to what I always like to ask this right here, when it comes to running your business, as long as number one, the business has ran 73 years, you personally being in it for 26, what has really snuck up on you? Maybe it was something I kind of refer to as something hidden in the bushes that jumped out at you that really kind of for a period of time had you reeling because being a business owner, you see business owners, but you've been one. What happened that you really thought tripped you up for a minute and then you had to figure out a workaround? What can you think of something that took place in your time span there at the helm of Carol Wirtz?
Well, as a small business owner, you are also the HR manager. You're the marketing and advertising department. You're
The
the
chief
sales,
bottle washer.
right? You're the sales force.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of things that I wasn't, even though, I had a business background and I went to school for business, there's a lot of things when you're running a business that you just aren't a master of or know a whole lot about that you quickly have to try to figure out or at least start to learn about. Okay. So I would say that the biggest thing that I've learned since I've been here is, I was never really great with people. And people are, it's harder and harder to find good people. And I learned very quickly that I needed to make sure that I fostered relationships with the employees that we did have that were strong, and we had to figure out a way to coach up the ones that weren't strong as the strong,
Hmm.
and just kind of navigate our way through the people issue that in our industry it's a big deal. Other industries, I guess it is as well, but in our industry with the technology that cars come with nowadays and nobody getting into the trades anymore, like auto mechanics or
Hmm.
whatever. We had to figure out a way to compete with the big companies that are big regional chains or national chains. Okay. So we decided that, first of all, we're going to be as human as possible, right? We're going to have empathy and we're going to show emotional depth and try to continue a complex social relationship with our people, to try to build them up. And at the same time, in order to compete, we looked at where our industry wages were nationally, what the average was, and then we took a deeper dive into where we were with it. And we needed to really elevate where some of these guys were getting paid on the hour, plus what their incentive program was, and most importantly, benefits. For us, that was a game changer. It's really nice for us to now be in a spot where we can go through the hiring process with a strong candidate and say, hey, insurance, your health insurance is on us. Okay. Every person that works here does not pay a single penny for medical, dental, or vision. They have a family.
That goes to your long play. I mean, how
Hey,
you
there you go. Exactly right.
it might have really, and I'm not going to say might, I'm certain it required a pretty significant investment, but for someone that acts relationally and is just not looking for the transaction with the customer or the employee,
Amen, brother. Right
it's
there.
the whole thing. So that makes
Right.
sense.
So it has to be a whole circle. You can't be relationship based with your customers, Greg, and then have a transactional relationship with your customer or with your employees. You know what I mean? You just can't. It has to be a full circle. So we said, hey, how are we going to be different than all these big chains that we're competing against for top talent, for these people
Sure,
that we need, right? That know what they're doing. And we said, okay, well, one of the ways is we can say we will pay for your benefits 100%. You, the employee. If you need dependents, spouses, and what on there, yeah, we're going to have to charge a fee. But here's what full disclosure. Here's what we're paying right here. That we're making this investment in our company, and we want you to be part of that investment. So you can see what you pay every pay period or every month isn't anywhere near what medical, dental, and vision costs the business, right? So yeah, that you're 100% right. That's the long play. You got to be relationship based with your customers. You got to be relationship based with your employees. And if you do that, then everything else takes care of itself.
it
The
does. It does.
customers will always come in. It,
Well, you are.
and as you know, if Greg Fay was to come to Carol Wirtz today, he drives past probably 20 or 30 shops to get here. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
But it's worth it. Is it? Am I right? Yes.
Yeah,
And
it
that
is.
right.
You've
Right.
given, Bill, you've done an incredible job. I hope that the entrepreneurs and the young business owners that are listening to this realize that that long play could work. And it's not the road most traveled. It's
Right.
the road less traveled, but it's oftentimes the road that's less traveled that enables me to have a guest like you here on the show to give 73 years of that business operating. It's been in your family, and now 26 years of you doing this. Bill, those were two nuggets right there that just organically came out, and I just hope everybody pays attention to that right there. So
Absolutely. And I just would like to say that, that's kind of one of my favorite things in life is helping other small business owners, especially new startups or people that haven't been in it that long. Like, hey, let me tell you, Carol Wirtz is not perfect. We have struggles every day, just like you do, starting out. And, sometimes you need to bounce things off of people or have another set of eyes or brain looking on it. And that's my favorite thing in the world is when they say, hey, Bill, you've been doing this a long time. What do you think about this and how it pertains to my business? And I love getting down in the weeds with them and trying to figure out because generally I try to be more up in the clouds, thinking like the long play and long-term strategy. But as a small business owner, you got to get down in those weeds and get dirty sometimes and really figure what that stuff out. And I I hope anyone that needs me as a resource, please reach out. It's one of my most favorite things to do is just to talk about other businesses and their struggles and give them ideas because a lot of times we face that. We've
Yeah.
already faced it and we've conquered it, and they just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. Well,
And that's where experience comes in, right?
anybody that's watching that's had interaction with you, it's funny. We've got to wind up here, but it's funny that you said when you came into the business, one of your struggles was with people, but yet all three of my kids will carry on a text conversation with you because they feel totally comfortable. Even
Yeah.
my daughter,
Yes.
and even when she had to have service up in Toledo, she was like texting you saying, "Okay, Bill, here," because it was a little bit of an emergency. She was like, "All right, Bill, here's what they're saying. What of it is legit." That really that means a lot. So one of the questions we like to ask here, just because birds of a feather flock together, when you think of this show right here, can you think of one or two businesses that you would like to see us have on this show right here? We really take pride in, number one, promoting local businesses, and yours is so much fun. It was. I'm so glad that we got on the calendar together. But can you think of any businesses, one or two? And I'll ask you to email them to me when we're done. We would love to. We're booked up right now through December, and that's humbling because people want to be on this show right here. But can you think of one or two businesses that you would say, man, it'd be awesome if they were on this show?
Yeah, I'm sure I could probably. I mean, top of mind right now, I don't know, but I'm sure
Okay.
I could come up with something and send it to
Yeah,
you for
email
sure.
me some as far as that because we definitely want to. We want to have folks on here that, again, I'm repeating it: birds of a feather flock together. Business owners that are like-minded. They talk to each other because they know that nuggets of wisdom that Bill gives is going to be, and it doesn't just have to be auto service. I'm so thankful that you took the time. Again, guys, I can just tell you right here, right now, that if I can get my kids, my adult children, to move on out of the nest confidently and know that they can reach out to somebody, transportation is pretty important in everything everybody does. Yet, like you pointed out, there's a lot of unscrupulous players in this business space. It's refreshing to have someone like you. Thank you so much for taking your time. Just say hello to your whole team from me. I'm sure that they know me and
Yeah.
as far as everything, but this has been a real pleasure. I'm looking forward to cutting up some clips from this right here. You gave me and other business owners, you made an investment here, brother. You really made an investment.
Well, I'm so happy to be a part of it, and like I said, we all have to stick together, right? Because we're the backbone of the United States of America,
Yes,
and
sir.
it's the 25 or 50 or less type companies that really make the world go round. Okay, and we only got 15 people here. There might be a company that has five or less, or maybe they got 50 or less. But it's us that if we stick together and we make each other better and help each other, then we're going to survive, and the United States is going to be better for it.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm going to wind up the show. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. You can look for some, I'm sure Bill is going to share this on his website and social media. I'm going to be cutting up some reels. There's some really juicy stuff that Bill gave here. Pay attention. We look forward to seeing everybody back next week. Bill, thank you again. I hope that you guys have a great day. Keep rocking and rolling at Carol Wirtz Tire, brother.